Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Listening a Smile podcast. Today, we are joined by an award winning poet, speaker, spoken word and visual artist, actor, voiceover artist, chess instructor, storyteller, and comedian from South Carolina. And this is, of course, Moody Black, who's been on the podcast previously before, but that is an exclusive audio episode because we had some troubles with the visuals. And for this podcast, the theme is going to be the intersection between creativity and spirituality. And with that being said, welcome to the show, Moody Black.
Man, thanks for having me, man. It's such an honor to be back.
Yeah,
How are
man.
you doing, bro?
I am, man, if I answer this question honestly, it's very different than just saying the usual fine. Life has been emotionally very challenging. I've been going through just I don't know if you know anything about astrology, but I'm going through my Saturn return right now, which is effectively when you get taught a really deep lesson. And for me, that lesson is currently sitting with my feelings and being with
Mm,
my and diving into my traumas from childhood.
mm,
So
mm.
very, very challenging upbringing
I can imagine.
with my father, and then extremely just really brutal high school experience, which really I repressed pretty much most of that for most of my life. There was a version of myself that was alive in high school that I was for the longest time, very ashamed of.
Mm,
And so I just, like, when I went to university, I just pretended like that version of myself never existed. And for so long, I just continued that where like everything was okay and no big deal. And then with this Saturn return, it's like I'm unable to escape that version of myself now.
mm,
And really, to be honest, that version of myself was a very beautiful version of myself, but it was far more sensitive than I was comfortable with being a masculine man in our society.
man.
Because that my core, one of the core aspects of me is highly sensitive, very vulnerable, very emotional, and very loving. And that part of myself just really in high school was taken advantage of. And and effectively, because my home environment was very challenging and the school environment was very challenging, the road I took was to just disappear. So effectively, it was like I would be in a social situation, but I wouldn't allow my energy to permeate anything. I would close myself off and enclose myself because I didn't want to be seen. Really, I didn't want to be seen, because at that point in my life, what being seen was being targeted and
Mm,
being a lot of the time like bullied, either again by my father or by people in high school. And I just didn't have the nurturing at home in that environment to nurture me. And many friends left when I was in the first 2 weeks of high school, so I was left with nothing. And so that was a crucible that was the route I took. And now for the last 7 months, I've been going back and really diving into that aspect of my life and my personality and finding a healthy way to integrate that version of myself back in, and really parenting myself and being the father that I never had, and in some sense even being the mother I never had, being the nurturer I never had. And so for that, it's been very challenging. So my nervous system, my emotional system has been incredibly taxed lately,
mm,
where a lot of the time it feels like it is challenging to have, it feels like I don't know if you've related to this before, but it's almost like the emotional landscape within is so taxing that it takes so much of your energy to regulate your emotional state and to stay afloat that you barely have any energy for the other things in your life. And so
Mm,
because of that, it's just been very a majority of the time almost shades of gray, that almost, you could say, that depressive cloud, because there's just I it's just so intense emotionally, and I barely have anything else to give. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. Oh, wow, that's deep, bro. That's deep. But hey, good for you to step into that journey. You know, a lot
Yeah.
of people don't face or they're unwilling to face their traumas and sift through that, to go towards the next step. So that's big, man. Kudos, bro.
Hey, thank you, man. Thank you. And I know before this, we talked briefly about what you've been going through, and I know that's a personal matter, unless you want to touch on it later or at all
Okay.
in this
Yeah, that's no problem.
podcast.
Okay.
But for the time being, let's dive into the theme that we have planned, and then we can
All right.
go into what you're going with if you feel like bringing that up. And I'm just going to leave
Yeah,
that
that's
to
no problem.
you. So I'm just going
Okay.
to
Yeah, I'm open to
give
do
you
that.
the initiative to engage in that topic. But so the opening thing I wanted to talk to you about, just a little icebreaker, which is, what has been your source of creativity and inspiration lately?
Oh, life itself, for the most part, just as like you kind of touched on, go to that journey, that mental and spiritual journey, discovering new facets about yourself.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, tap into that, tap into my perspective about things that's happening around me, whether it's internal or external, and just going from there, man. But no matter what the topic is, I'm coming from as a personal aspect of it.
Hmm. And what are some of these specifically? What are some of these aspects that have been coming online for you?
Oh man, just showing my growth, looking back from my lessons, and I'm not gonna call them mistakes,
Yeah.
uh, or losses. The only L I take is a lesson.
Yeah.
So reflecting back some of the lessons I've learned for some of the mishaps along, some of the challenges along the way, and a lot of some of the bad decisions I made, but I've
Hmm.
gained lessons. You know what I'm saying? Going those lessons, especially from a personal perspective with family, how
Hmm.
I get involved with these people and we create families and it don't work. So now I have these situations, and I love my kids. We have a great relationship,
Yeah.
but the kids are kind of scattered, and just from uh, just a healthy background or a generally healthy background. My kids are great, but
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, man, it could be so much better had I
Hmm.
worked. I worked on myself. I fought a little more. I fought harder, keep this nucleus together, or if I came across those lessons for myself earlier,
Hmm.
what could have been or what could I've done to help that person or my mate at the time to achieve the level of growth that they needed for us to be, I guess, equally yoked, as they say. So I reflect a lot of that. Then some of those decisions where I could be better financially, I could be in a better position financially had I had the mindset that I had. And of course, it's life. We grow, we don't be the same where we are at that point. But
Yeah.
just that, at a certain age, we start reflecting. You're like, man, I could have done a whole lot better. But I also believe in you are where you are because of for you to get in that position to learn those lessons. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a like catch 22 almost.
Yeah, well, even something I study very, very deeply is something called human design. It's a broad spectrum of parts of it. It's like Jungian psychology is part of it, biology, astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalistic tree of life,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very deep. And one teaching it has, and it's touching on what you're talking about, that all of our gifts are found through the excavation of our challenges. So, for example, someone like there's one, we call it a gate in human design, but one archetype you could say is archetype 50, which is the, you could say this would be the gift of this is the kind of human being that within a tribal setting or community maintains the values of the community. This would almost be a tribal elder. You can almost think of it from that perspective. Or even some podcasters. You could almost look at Jordan Peterson in some sense, because he's very big on educating the youth and maintaining the right values. And one thing that's interesting about that archetype is that the gift is somebody who maintains the values of the society, or specifically the community, I would say. It can also be someone who challenges the existing values to integrate new, better values. And so again, that is the heightened expression of that archetype. But the lower expression, that all people that result in that higher expression, all of them, likely including Jordan, went through a period of their life in youth where they actually broke the law a lot. Because effectively what it really is that human being is very interested in values. That could be breaking values, that could be adhering to values, that could be maintaining values, but that's a human being that's very fixated on the idea of values. And so again, when you're in youth, when you're coming from fear, anger, separation, hatred, what do? You break values. You say, screw the world. I'm angry at the world, and I'm not going to adhere to your values. And then what happens is, once you realize, you break enough values that you realize that, wow, this community will not function without values. When you break enough values, you realize that everything falls apart, and the values are the glue that maintains the integrity of that community coming together. Even you're talking about family. You're talking about your children. You're talking about the kind of family you wanted, and how earlier in life you attempted that, and you learned some lessons naturally, as we all do. And I've been challenged, and I have. Again, I like what you say. I wouldn't say I've made mistakes, but in focusing on anything, in exploring anything in life, you're going to probably start off making mistakes, because nobody just jumps into a pursuit and masters it immediately. Usually a trial and error. We're trying things, we're making mistakes. And then once we've amassed enough mistakes, we develop wisdom. We learn lessons and we build wisdom. And so it's very interesting you talk about this. So I would love to know, actually, when you were younger, when you were thinking of having a family and you were thinking of maybe a previous relationship, or what was the vision you had for your family at that time? And what happened? And what is your vision now? Is it the same? Has it evolved?
Oh, I would say it evolved, man. When I was young, my parents divorced when I was 5.
Gotcha.
But I wasn't one of those kids who was torn up about it, because I really realized my parents just wasn't made to be together. I'm like, man, this is toxic stuff. I didn't know what the word toxic
Mine
was.
too. Mine too.
I was like, man, I hope they don't ever get back together.
Yeah.
They suck together.
Yeah.
But at the same time, because I had kids early, man, just not being disciplined. But once I did have my first child, I was like,
How old were you?
I was 16. I was a teenage
Wow.
parent.
Okay, so you learned early, man. Wow. Gotcha.
Yeah, but the cool thing I do pride myself in, whenever I'm giving myself the opportunity, or a lot of opportunity, because sometimes the mothers could be treacherous. If the relationship don't work, they take it out on you, the kid.
Yeah.
But I do know that I'm a great dad, man. I'm a great dad. When we have these opportunities to be together, they allow me to really fully be the father I know I could be, man. It's a beautiful situation. And once I became a father, when I knew I was going to become a father, I immediately started doing the research. I was like, man, because I want to be a great dad. I'm going to learn from whatever lessons my parents learned, or whatever mistakes they made or challenges they had. I'm going to learn that and apply, my all to making this, a better situation for this child. And now read the books. I seek counsel with the elders, and of course a lot of it's trial and error, man. I had to learn the way, but I just know I want to be a great dad, that's pretty much it, man. Now I got myself in a situation. I had I was father 16 and 19. And I like, man, I can't keep doing this. I gotta get married. So I got involved with this young lady, and yeah, she messed around. She got pregnant. So I'm like, yo, we gotta get married. I want to show my other daughters that this is how family's supposed to look. And I know what I didn't completely have. I want to try to recreate or create something that seems stable. But
Yeah.
at the same time, that's still not the right reason to get married. And
Yeah.
that failed. That failed all because I'm trying to create this idea. But it's a lot more to it, man. That person, you got to line up with that person. There's be some level of alignment, some level of being in love, not just loving, but being in love.
Yeah.
And first and foremost, putting your visions together and building that, building an empire, so to speak, not just spiritually and mentally, but also financially. What does that look like? How can we do this to elevate ourselves to a better position? So all those things come to play, and I learned that along the way, even up till now. Like, man, if I'm gonna get married again, we got to have this, 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 this. We got to talk about this. We got to be here, here. Yeah. So
Man,
because of two failed marriages and some children, I learned a lot of lessons.
Absolutely, and this is interesting because yeah, you were talking about finding the right person. What is your perspective on soulmates? Do you believe in that? Do you not?
Kind of, sort of. I think the romantic in me believes in the 80%. The skeptic in me, the 20%, like, no, no, no. Because I do think it's a level of, man, connection, the connectivity with someone that you just jive with, and it feels good, it feels right. And,
Mm,
yeah, line up almost pretty much close to everything. And it's just real good chemistry.
yeah.
Yeah, and just to be open and honest about my last relationship that I ended in this past February, or we she ended it, the main thing we had was chemistry. It just felt right. How we
Mm,
interacted, and whether in private or in public, it was a beautiful thing. But our values wasn't the same.
right.
We had different views on religion, different views on
Right.
parenting, uh, just different views on handling certain situations. So
Mm,
those things kind of like outweighed the chemistry, even though
yeah.
we were in love because of the chemistry. So are there soulmates? Yeah, you can have a soulmate. Yeah, but does that mean you're supposed to be with that person? You know, it's something to think about. You can have a friend mate, a friend soulmate.
Hey
You know
man,
what I'm
that's
saying?
like me and Ian, bro.
Yeah. So yeah, so it's yes, but in terms of relationship, yeah, but it's so many more components you have to consider other just having that chemistry. Because I think it's what being having a soulmate is. You have that chemistry, and it just feels right. It feels great. But see, they get all into feelings. We escape the logic, or the rationale of being in this relationship. Is it going to be conducive to what I want or my vision?
Yeah.
Or our vision is going to line up to be conducive for us to being great, to grow and elevate. So to answer your question, yes, kind of.
Yeah. It's very interesting because I have my own perspective on this, and the first part of it is that to your point of this idea, because I think there's different kinds of spiritual beliefs. There's religious spiritual beliefs. There's New Age spirituality. There's different kinds of spirituality, and I think more in the I won't say the New Age. Let's just say one view of soulmates is I think what you were referring to, which is it feels good. The passion's there, the
Mm,
chemistry. It's electric.
mm,
From my perspective, a lot of the time that is not always, but a lot of the time it's trauma bonding. So a lot of the time is a lock
mm,
and a key. So effectively, why the fire and why it's so passionate is because one of you may be more emotionally avoidant and the other one is more attached, and so it creates this friction that feels a lot like fire, right? It's like you need friction to create fire, and so in some senses, if both people are not fully healed in their traumas and in their wounds, is going to be highly passionate, but it might even be a little bit toxic. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that is what you had with your previous relationship.
Oh, no, I would probably say that's what it is. Yeah.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And so that, I don't think that's anything close to a soulmate. I think that is more of a trauma bond, but in some sense, like the way I see it. Okay, I'll ask you a question. Do you believe in source or God?
I believe there's a source. I don't believe in God like people generally are.
Like a religious God?
Yeah. I'm in the South, so this the Bible Belt. So I was raised in it, man. But when I start studying different other paths and questioning things and not getting answers from people, I realize, oh, I'm not going on this quest for myself or what things make sense to me and or things are logical. So I believe there's a creator. I believe there's a source. I think there's so many doors open that lead to other doors. I can't say it's a finite thing. But between knowledge and belief, it's two different things. Now, what I believe that something created this.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but my knowledge is like, man, it's too much. We don't know. We don't know, man. I do. But I think, and I don't want to get too far away from what you're asking. But I studied everything, even atheism. I have books on it. And I think with people, especially in the South, when they hear that word, they think you don't have any values. Well, I met quite a few atheists that have more values than the so-called Christian. You know, I'm just saying, so I don't think it's a values thing. But I think people attach that. If you don't believe what I believe, you don't have any values. You're a bad person. But the same token, I know a lot of people in their religious sects, they follow it to the T as far as the theory and how it's supposed to look. But they don't follow it based on the principles and morals that they try to convey to everybody else. So I tell you, yes, I believe there's something out there. I don't know what it is yet. Still learning. But I think it's something greater than me. But I also say, just from the song I wrote, Peace God, man, I believe there's a God in us. Everything that exists is in us. So we could be God. We create our own God. God was created for some human beings trying to display what's going on,
Yeah. And it's an interesting thing about values, because I think as atheists and religious people just have different values. It's not that one has values and the other doesn't. It's that, well, I think we all have values. It's just, what values do we have? Are we aware of our values? Are they subconscious values? Are they conscious values? And I'm going somewhere with this question about source. Do you believe in reincarnation?
Oh man, that's so interesting, man. I'm still trying to figure out. Cause I don't know if I die, I'll come back as a cow. I don't know. I don't know how I fully stand on that, but I do believe that there's an unexplainable or inexplicable energy inside of all of us. And Albert Einstein once said that energy can't be created or destroyed. So I believe, and I think even some scientists have worked their best to prove that they do, I guess, EKGs, or somebody died, that the body is less, weighs less, or they see that it's an energy they can't really pinpoint. It's something in there we can't see it, but it shows up on these graphs and stuff. So I think our energy never dies. I think that energy is transferred. I do believe that we represent our ancestors, man. That their DNA is inside of us. Our behavior, sometimes our moods, are representative of somebody from the 5 generations in the past. So I do believe that soul, that energy may be inside of us. So I think I'm reincarnated that way. But I don't know if I fully believe that if somebody could come back as a bug or an animal. I don't know. I know, but I just say what I believe. So do I believe in reincarnation? Kind of, just more energetically.
Gotcha.
As far as transferring fits into the human being, or do I come back as another animal or something? I don't know.
I hear you. So you use the word soul. Do you believe we have a soul? And when,
I believe.
And because like, yeah, like, you know, this conversation is neither of us are, I'm developing psychic abilities, but they haven't fully come online yet.
Mm,
Extrasensory abilities, more specifically.
mm.
So really both of us are talking just about our beliefs.
How do you do that? I'm sorry to deviate from your question, but
Yeah,
how does
yeah.
one get or graduate to a level to use those things? Because I do know that we only use a small percentage of our
Yeah.
brain. I do know that, and I've discovered that those who have a little bit more percentage are be able to tap more into that, has those gifts to kind of see things. So I'm just imagining, what if we were able to use full capacity of our brains and what powers we could have,
Yeah.
because some of the questions that has been had in the centuries is like, well, how certain things happen when there's no scientific evidence of them using the proper physical tools to make these things happen. But what if they were all able to use, because it's not like now we're so polluted with everything
Yeah.
from our diets and everything else. What if they ate good and they had full use of their brain where they can actually make things happen, see things, move things, because they used all their brains. So I would like to know, how do you like tap into that to expand the percentage
Yeah, yeah,
of
yes.
brain?
So when I was 13, my mom got me into spirituality. So she went through a spiritual awakening when I was about 13 or 14. And and so like I've been around psychics and mediums like my entire life. Like my mom's three best friends were psychics growing up. So they were full on, like, if they got into a meditative state, they could tell you things about your life that they couldn't have access to. So for me, I think the first step to having those abilities coming online is to be open to the fact that they could even exist. Because a lot of people, I think, so some people are, sometimes it's weird because some people, they're atheists and they have a spiritual awakening and all of a sudden they have extrasensory abilities. So it's not
Mm,
always the case that you have to be open to spirituality for you to develop spiritual abilities. It literally just it just happens to you. Now, from my awareness, do I think that being open to spiritual ideas like psychic abilities can make it easier and more a nice transition to those abilities coming online? I think so, but I don't know. But and where I'm going with this is, so when I was 13, I got into this world. And then back, so I didn't have any psychic experiences for years. And then when in 2022 December, how old was I? I think I was around 27. Yeah, I think I was 27. I had my first channeling experience, randomly, where all of a sudden it was really wild. I started crying randomly, like just like uncontrollably sobbing, like heavy, ugly crying, as they say, right? And I just started crying, and because all of a sudden I got this flood of information into my head, the flood, and it was almost like I went back to I got this vision of the Big Bang, and I had this vision of this initial spark of creation, and then I just saw how, like, I just had this vision of how, like, the cosmos got formed, where it was
mm,
like the Big Bang and the spark of creation, it just boom, and then this evolutionary process happened where it goes from like single-celled organisms to multi-celled organisms, and how this initial spark of creation from the beginning of time is in all living things. And now going back to that, I'm extrapolating that it might be in all inanimate things too, like rocks and stuff. But that wasn't what I saw at the time. And so, yeah, I just got this vision that I, Anton Czachor, I am the descendant of this originating energy. And I remember I just started bawling, dude, because like I never saw my life as important before that that time. Like I never really felt like I had any sense of purpose. Like I was here for any really big way. And then when I had this vision and this feeling and I started crying, it was because like I felt like, wow, I feel like I have a responsibility in a sense to continue that spark, you know, with my children. And because that spark that is in me, I'm going to be giving to my children. And so, I just saw that spark in all the animals, and I just saw like a cheetah, like just going through the plains of Africa, and just how like everything alive is so important because we are the continuation and evolution of the universe itself. And so I got this, and then after I had that vision and I was crying, a voice came through. This voice, and it just started talking to me. And it was using my voice. And at first I was like, what the hell is going on? And it started telling me things. It started telling me that all the great works of art were channeled, and that they, like, all these brilliant artists on Earth, and likely it didn't say that, it didn't specify on Earth, but I'm just adding that right now. But it said this thing that all of these artists, you know, yourself, Ian, me, musicians, poets, Hollywood directors, authors, all of us are channeling these these works of art that are actually evolving the human race. That we're like, if you think about the Matrix, you know, think about how impactful the Matrix has been for humanity's understanding of simulation theory, and the ideas of consciousness, and how now many of us, when we talk about things like simulation theory and quantum physics and the idea of different dimensions, a lot of the time we use the Matrix. We even use the word Matrix now, right? Like, we use that movie as a way to articulate incredibly complex ideas in a very simple way. So in some way, the Matrix itself has been a consciousness evolution technology. And I think that's what art is. I think art is channeled from, I have ideas of where, but I haven't actually seen where, so I'm not going to go there. But what I did receive, that art is channeled as a form of evolving consciousness, and as a way of just getting us in touch with ourselves and expanding our minds, expanding our hearts, showing us new ways to love each other, showing us new ways to live. How difficult would it be for us to communicate a new future to each other, or where we could be going, where we could be evolving to, if we didn't have any movies or pieces of art or stories that could be used as a way to describe that world, right? And it's like, so that happened. So this voice just started speaking through me, and I remember I asked it, what are you? Like, who are you? And it said, we are your ancestors. And so that was very interesting. And one of the voices that spoke through me spoke through in this very Southern accent, almost like Texas. And it's interesting too, because I've always loved the Southern accent. I love the Texas accent. It's just like one of my favorite video games is this game called Red Dead Redemption 2. And I will just such a good game. And I'll I'll be on a walk and I'll just be like talking out loud to myself, just mimicking the lines and stuff. And the reason why I bring that up is, so it's just interesting. The South has always had a big impact on me. I'm fascinated by that culture. And so this voice spoke through me with this it sounded like a 90-year-old man from Texas. And it was bizarre because my neck was constricting in a way that it never does. And I just sounded old. And so that was my first experience channeling. And then I didn't have another experience until, what was it, about January of 2024. So actually earlier this year, I had another channeling experience where I was writing in my journal and I just started, I could tell it was like you're writing and then all of a sudden you're continuing to write, but the thing that is controlling your hand is not you. You can tell there's a difference. And also it started again talking to me in the third person. It was like I'd just be writing down in my journal. I was actually typing. So I wasn't writing, I was typing in my journal on my phone on a notepad. And it just started telling me things. And that time I was very discerning and I asked it, I said, who are you? What are you? And are you what you claim to be? Because when you first get into channeling and any extrasensory perception, I think from my experience, it's very important to be discerning of knowing where this information is coming from. Because as soon as you get into the idea of channeling, you're opening yourself up to extra dimensional entities, things like your soul, source itself, or again, like I said, entities. And some of these entities are going to be positive, and some of them are going to be of the darkness or the shadows. And so I'm in a point now where I'm learning to feel into the frequency of the energy source that's coming through me. And I'm still learning that. And so what happened with that was I started learning about this thing called human design that I told you about. This archetypal system that essentially is a personality profiling system, very similar to Myers-Briggs or the Big Five. That is really it's the continuation of the technology of astrology. Really, it's astrology for the 21st century, and that is what I get. I get a lot of downloads with this system. Where like just about a week ago, I was watching the movie Gravity, which is Sandra Bullock and George Clooney. Great movie. And the whole time I was just flooded with downloads about human beings, where I could. Because we all, from this human design perspective, we all have this chart, just like an astrology chart, that like if I look at your chart, I could figure out what you're interested in, what you'd like to talk about the most, what you think about the most, how you express yourself, what you are like emotionally, whether or not you are highly emotional. I could figure out if you're bipolar or not. I could figure out if you're depressive or not. I could figure out if you're more rigid in your thinking, if you're more open-minded, if you're intuitive to other people or just yourself. Like I can get an incredible amount of information from somebody's human design chart. And when I was watching Gravity, I started getting flooded with downloads, where I could look at any of the archetypes in somebody's human design chart, and I could view life through their perception through that archetype. So for example, what I told you about somebody who's very interested in values, I could literally view life through the perspective of someone where their prime directive, their prime interest, or the lens through which they view reality through is through this prime lens of values, or even empowerment. Some people are here to express pure power and empowerment. That is somebody that every time you tell them what to do, they're just going to say no. Which is that is something I'm actually learning in my life with my mentor right now. But it was like, when I was watching this movie, it was like I could select any of those archetypes, any of them. And I could just, it was like I was transported into somebody else's body, and I was viewing through their eyes, and I was feeling their emotions and what it would be like to view life through that lens, as opposed to the lens that I have. And so that was a download. I would call that almost a psychic-like experience, because again, you're tapping into extra sensory information. And so that has been happening more and more and more and more to me ever since December of 2022. So again, December 2022, I had my first experience. 2023, I don't think I had any experiences. And then January 2024, I have a huge experience. And then now it's like every 2 months, I get flooded with downloads where I'll learn something about DNA, where I'll just get this vision of how DNA operates and how DNA constructs reality, how DNA is a transceiver for different frequencies within the universe, and how essentially what we are these frequencies emanating through our DNA, and their DNA is effectively projecting reality as our human body and the reality around us. And so it's fascinating stuff, man. But that's been my journey with you could say psychic abilities. How does that land for you?
Oh man, that's pretty dope, man. I will have to ask, like when we say we hear those voices or something spoken to us, would that be our subconscious speaking? And, and a lot of times people say, when God spoke to me, I heard God's voice.
Yeah.
But I would question, well, once again, because God is in us, we're God. But
Yeah.
would we hear our own subconscious, our own thoughts, or would we be speaking what we subconsciously is already thinking? And that's just a question, because like I approach things like I don't know, I don't have all the answers.
It's a great question. It's a fantastic question, and to answer it, I don't know. It could be like, and this is where. So I have a couple perceptions on it. So could it be my subconscious? For sure. But it is, even if it's my subconscious, it's very interesting that these are times where my subconscious has seemed to break through into my conscious in a way that has never happened yet in my life. So even if it's my subconscious, something is still happening. Something really wild is still happening. Now, and the reason why I see it as channeling, and the reason why I personally see it as extra dimensional, is because, okay, here's an interesting question too. Do you believe that all of our subconsciouses are connected within the collective unconscious? Like Carl Jung would say. Because what is interesting is, let's say, for sake of the argument, let's just say what you said. Let's say this is just purely subconscious. If it's purely subconscious, how can someone who claims to be psychic, and someone who's actually a psychic, not a bullshit artist, but someone who's actually a psychic and has reproducible results for their abilities? And actually, two of the psychics my mom was friends with have done scientific experiments with scientists. One was Dr. William Tiller from, where was he from? Stanford? I don't know I don't know, but he was from a very reputable university, and she did psychic experimentations with him, and they were able to reproduce these effects. Same with, I believe the work of Rupert Sheldrake was also reproducible, about ideas like the morphogenetic field, that there is a consciousness field that connects all life. And when a human being learns something, that skill is then attainable to all other human beings on Earth, or maybe even in other galaxies as well. And from his perspective, that is why when we broke the 4-minute mile, suddenly that 4-minute mile was broken all the time, right? Yeah. So it's that idea. So back to your question, do I think it could be subconscious? Possibly, but then if it's subconscious and psychics can access your subconscious, then it would mean that all of our subconsciouses would have to be connected. And if all of our subconsciouses are connected, then I guess in some sense, how is that different than different entities communicating with you? Because then the possibility would be, if we have all of our ancestors' experiences and knowledge within us, and all of our, okay, let's see me, Anton Czachor. through my DNA, through my non-coding DNA, which is all of the junk DNA that scientists talk about, this is my perspective on it. Apparently there's been not scientific research on this, but there's been spiritual research on this that seems to be corroborated, but maybe not proven in mainstream journals. But through the non-coding DNA, this is my perspective on it, we house all of our ancestors' DNA and also all of the memories and experiences of other people's ancestors too. Actually, all human life is stored apparently in our non-coding DNA. And therefore, we seem to be able to access not only our ancestors' information, but I would be able to access the ancestry information of your ancestors. I'm picking up a little bit of sound from, okay, now it's gone. But yeah, so it would seem to be that regardless if it's the subconscious, we're all connected in some way. And all of that ancestry DNA is in our DNA. And maybe that's actually because all of us share the same core ancestors. Because if we all go back to Africa, and then the question would be, we likely all emanate from the same evolutionary process. Because if you looked at who were the first human beings that evolved on Earth, those human beings would have mated and then over time reproduced every single human being that exists now. So even from that standpoint, even if you're not even getting esoteric, we're still all connected because we literally come from the same source. So how does that all land for you?
No, I think it makes perfect sense. And I do believe that we all are connected somewhere or somehow, especially in the subconscious. I think people try to close the door sometimes or ignore that level of connectivity.
Yeah.
Don't allow themselves to be fully plugged in with everybody else. Prime example, I used to attend certain churches and I could see the whole congregation moved by something. Or they say in the church, they all got the spirit. Well, as I got older, I realized that we are spiritual beings for the most part. And something can move the collective, a certain voice, song, sermon, whatever it is, it's touching something. If it's really something that's conveyed out, that I think it's really down to a level where we all can share certain experiences.
Yeah.
I know, like in the church, and most ministers, they're really crafty. They wordsmiths.
Yeah, dude, they're charismatic, bro.
Oh yeah. So I mean, they're poets. We're the same. We're all poets.
True.
So we learn certain tactics to move people. We know what certain words or certain inflections to convey to people and then move them. So, but whatever that thing is that they say or do, or I mean, choir singing, the collective is moved because we are subconsciously connected. So I think we are especially those like who more in tune, or some of those who are empaths. I can feel you. I'm really so in tune that I can feel whatever you are going through, and I take that all in. Yeah. Maybe they're ultra connected.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now you brought up something very interesting, which is oration, poetry, and charisma. So what are some of these, you could almost use the word power words or power tones or power inflections. What have you learned are some of these master modes of communicating that seem to put a spell on people and seem to, whatever way you do, whenever you use these master modes, seem to be able to just penetrate effortlessly into the minds of people to get them to do really kind of what you want?
Well, I think especially from a Southern perspective, and I guess it all stems from that whole Bible Belt thing, that fiery preacher in the pulpit. And once I build up to that point where either I'm reaching to a point of complete anger in my poem, fiery love. I can build my voice up.
Heightened emotion.
Yeah, I build up, I heighten that emotion, and then people connect with that because it touches them. I think people normally want to get that out. They want to be able to like,
Right, right.
so we're the mouthpiece for the people. So once we do it for them, they're like, yes, yes, because they want to do all that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you speak it the way I want to say it. You say it the way I want to say it. That's how I feel like, yeah. We move that in because I think a lot of people want to say those things, like 'cause a lot of people feel like they can't do it.
Yeah.
So we're the mouthpiece for the congregation, so to speak. And so we build that fiery part of our performance. People are like plugged in and they charge because they want to say that. They want to convey how they feel in that way. So that's one of the kind of tricks. And maybe I shouldn't just say South, but it's my experiences. It's more
Yeah.
of a Southern thing. But I guess anyone, anywhere, when you're saying something in a way that people want to say it, but they can't, and you're doing it for them, that moves them. Especially where the topic is a topic that maybe something's going on socially,
Yes.
and they want to get it out, and we're speaking for them, or that language of love, hurt. We're the ones saying it, and we tap into that emotion, how we think it's supposed to make us feel, and we're speaking for everybody else. And they're like, yeah, because that's what they want to say. They want to feel. They'll hold that for a long time, but we're saying it for them. So then we're like, yeah, that's how I feel.
Absolutely. Well, even like when I was in high school, like I was telling you a little bit about my high school experience, where I was going to say likely, but not even likely. I had suppressed rage. I had suppressed fury at my father, fury at society. I was expelled twice. I was suspended 25
Ooh.
times before grade 5. So I felt abandoned by my father, betrayed by my father, abandoned by my mother, abandoned by society, abandoned by my friend group. And so I had so much anger and fury in me. But I didn't feel safe to express it because I didn't have any, it's almost like in order to express that level of dissidence or anger, it's like if you're self-aware to any degree, you'll realize that there's going to be a cost to that. And so like, let's say like you have a good home life or something, but you're angry at society. It's like you can almost fight society because at least when you come home, there's something protecting you. But when there is no place of safety, anger and rebellion becomes harder to do because you don't have anywhere to go. And I think deep down in me, I knew that if I was to really express the full extent of what I was feeling, I might burn every single bridge. And there would be nothing left because I didn't even know how to nurture myself. So I wouldn't even really be able to go into myself. And so for me, I fell into people pleasing. And the funny thing about that is what you're talking to, this idea of we love people that express something that we wish we could express. For me, when I was in high school, I got into rock and metal music, like full on screaming music. I love that shit. Like, Five Finger Death Punch or Slipknot or something. You know what I mean? It was like Bullet for a Valentine and Killswitch Engage and stuff. Like these bands, I didn't even realize, I was so unconscious to it. I didn't know why I liked it so much, but really it was giving a voice to my fury. It was giving a voice to all of the things that I felt like I couldn't express because I was too afraid to, because I felt like I'd lose everything. Even any of the relationships that I was trying to rebuild, even like with my mother's, like if I was fiery with my mom, it's like, well, then I didn't have anybody because I never had my dad. So if I hurt the one person who stuck by my side, because at that point, me and my mother were getting close. It's like, yeah, that I couldn't do that. So that music became an outlet. And then music is another form of poetry, right? Because music is like, they're screaming about something, they're singing about something, and it's the lyrics. And so when you're talking about someone getting up and hitting a point of anger or fire in their poetry, that's metal music. And then it's like a place of maybe it's the opposite of my experience. Maybe somebody went through a lot of life feeling they're trapped in their masculine and they didn't feel safe to be sensitive, or they didn't feel safe to be vulnerable or romantic because they thought that their partner would think they're a wussy or, weak. Right. So you get some men who are polarized on the other side, who only know how to have boundaries and they don't know how to be open. So then they would actually maybe deep down be very moved by some of your poetry that allows them to tap into maybe of their repressed sensitivity or vulnerability. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we have about 15 minutes, and I want to touch on a couple other things. So I want to briefly touch on the work you're doing with listening to Smile with Ian.
Yes.
So we had your first single, what, 3 months ago?
Yeah, maybe two. I don't think it's been three, but wait, it's so time's flying, bro. Oh my
I know.
gosh.
I know. So my question with you is, what was your vision for that single? And then with any music that you're working on now, what is your current vision? And how
Ooh.
are you seeing that change at all, or are you continuing the direction you were with that first single?
Well, just for the viewers, me and Ian have collaborated in several tracks for some of his projects. But this one in particular seems to be, a little, I guess, different, a little more special, and just a more bigger movement, more power behind it this time around. And so many people have joined the movement, which is a great salute to my man Ian. Um, but yeah, he sent me, he said, look, I got this about to really be big. I'm seeing some tracks. So he sent me two tracks, one for a poem, one for a rap. And the poem, the beat, because he labeled his beat, most beat makers always give their beat a name.
Yeah.
So for the poem in particular, the track was called Air Currency. So that was motivation for me to write something with that in it. And it was definitely a track that's somewhat meditative. It was for people to listen to, but I'm also speaking, uh, poetically, get people, and I guess in that trance of meditation. And I talk about how air is money, our
Mm.
breathing is money. That is currency. And but at the same time, they're breathing, they're meditating, listening to this. So it's all cyclical as far as the theme and the references I use. There's a lot of air and breathing references and a lot of monetary references tied into it. So I just took his title and used that, and I'm breathing throughout the track. There's certain points where I'm actually breathing. So the breathing part serves as the hook of the chorus, or in poetry
Mm.
terms, the refrain of the poem. Where I build up and breathe to breathe. Then I get back to talking about how breathing this is money. So I was very excited to write that and actually record it. The other track, oh God, now I forgot the name of the track.
Peace God.
Yeah, I called it Peace God, but the track was called something else. I was trying to think of what the track was called, but that's the only track I took to a whole other direction. But when I wrote it, I was just thinking, and stuff I've been thinking about a lot in terms of accepting that we are God's. If God is
Mm.
in us, if everything out here in the sky, or in the galaxy universe, and on the planet has the same basic chemical makeup, and all those things are also inside of us. But if God is in everything, then God is us, because everything is inside of us.
Mm.
There's six basic uh, chemicals I'm letting my mind think right now. But in the space, in the earth, and inside of us, we have carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Schnapps. I tell people schnapps. I learned that in biology. I studied biology in class in college. But I just never forgot. A teacher taught me that. I remember schnapps. We drink schnapps and alcohol. But those things are in everything. It's in space. It's in the earth. It's inside of us. But if God is that, and we got it inside of us, what I'm
Mm.
saying? It don't have to be, I guess, an omnipotent perspective, like I reign over everything, I
Yeah.
zap, 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 because that's what we visualize God as. But God could be a spirit, God could be an energy, God could be all of that. And it's in everything. Think about our ancestors, especially like any of the indigenous people that was here or Africa or even Asia, at some point they paid homage to the trees, to the air, to the sun. And people at some point through our evolution, we thought they were ignorant. We thought they was being savages
Yeah.
and they didn't have no direction or guide. But nah, they honored that because God was in that tree. God is in the sun. God is in that crop we trying to give energy to help grow. And they was ahead of the time. And now it's so funny how we constantly, slowly trying to revert back to that ideology. You know what I'm saying? Are we paying homage? Are we giving our vibration, our energy to this crop, to the tree, to the sky to give us some rain? You know what I'm saying? That's all connected. I like when the certain tribes in the indigenous states that before it was called the United States, when they do the rain dance, people mock them, they do the rain dance, but now they all uniting their energy back to collective energy to summon the rain because they know that we are connected. That's God.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. It's funny too. I actually recently studied a little bit about the rain dancing, and something I found really interesting is supposedly a lot of the way that we look at the rain dance is actually backwards. So supposedly it's not that they're doing the rain dance to bring rain. It's that they're actually going to where the rain is going to rain, and they're doing a ceremony of something they know will happen. And a lot of these people that do the rain dance are shamans. They're very intuitively connected to the cycles.
Right.
And so there's a joke that this Rain Man, he was known throughout these, this tribe or I don't know if it was tribes or single tribe, but that everyone viewed this Rain Man as like, oh, he's going to bring the rain. He's going to help us with their droughts and stuff. And so, they would invite him to, or what was it? People would invite him to their place to summon the rain. And in so doing, they would give him a place of shelter. They would give him food and stuff. And then he would go into his little hut or something, and he would block out the curtains, or he would start putting these things on his altar and making it look like he was doing all these things, so that the people would think that he was summoning the rain. But really, he would literally just go to a place that he knew was going to rain, and he would just like chill for 3 days and just pretend like he was doing stuff, but really he was doing absolutely nothing. He was just super tuned into the rain. And then he would come out and then he'd be like, yes, I made it rain. And everyone would be like, oh, thank you so much. And apparently this is actually supposedly what is happening. That is what my research is and my study has gathered. But because for me, I find that just so interesting, because again, it goes to the interconnectedness, that there are certain, human beings, there's certain roles that really is not about maybe creating something in all moments, but maybe is literally just being tuned into where the natural flow is going,
I like that. It's dope, man.
Yeah. So, all right, and the last thing I'll ask about the peace god is so when you're talking about God specifically, it sounds like you're referring to God as this. Do you think there's any part of God that is more aware of its parts? And what I mean by that is so it sounds like when I listen to you, the idea is that God is in all of us. We're all connected.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think there is any, you could say almost external aspect of God that is aware of all of the parts together? Or do you think if we are all God, is there anything outside of us that knows something that the parts don't? Do you get what I mean?
I think so. Well, let me start by saying I think God, I believe God is a collective consciousness on a higher level. Like we just, as you aforementioned, how we were talking about earlier, how we can have a collective consciousness here, how we find that kind of connection. We see that. So just think of God as that collective consciousness 2.0. So yeah, I think that there is a level of understanding that consciousness may have. we're part of it, but I think it has a higher understanding, a higher level of how things are going to go or how things should go. And but we're still part of it, but it has a purpose. What that purpose is, we guess, we try to get science to determine that, or we put our faith into it, guide that understanding. I don't know, but I do believe in that high level of consciousness. I do believe there is a collective or a high level of connectivity. I see a cloud, to put it visually, like a cloud of consciousness that we all are tapped into.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I thought about this. It's kind of like back in the day when they had the telephone operators, they plug it in,
Right.
connect the people, saying, yeah, we all connected to that, but that operator knows where to plug things into. I think that's a good description of it. Like that's how God is. Like, yeah, we all plugged into it, but it's also knowing where to put certain pieces, know where to plug different people into plug-in situations that they kind of know this is gonna happen here, this is gonna happen here. They can see the whole board, but we're just kind of calling the plug in. It sees the whole board.
Yeah, it almost, what I get from what you're saying is maybe DNA is kind of God.
Like the DNA is doing that. Yeah.
Well, exactly. Like, because if you think about it, if all information can be stored in DNA, and they're even doing new scientific experiments that they're saying that, what is it? I forget the specific of what they're talking about, but I think they said a drop of DNA can store, I don't know the exact amount, but a staggering amount of information. We're talking I don't want to state something incorrectly, but let's just say a staggering amount. Like, we're talking more than every computer on Earth kind of thing, or every like one drop of DNA. That is a drop of one person's DNA. And so, like, when I listen to you, I'm thinking like, yeah, I wonder if DNA is the transceiver of God or the receiver of God. That, if God is information, if God is an organizing consciousness, if God is intelligence, well, all those things are being stored in the DNA, or at least the DNA seems to be the self-organizing principle that connects all things and makes sure that all things work in conjunction,
Indeed, brother. Indeed.
Yeah. All right, bro. So, finishing up here. So, please share any projects you're currently working on and where people can find you.
All right, my website is www.IamMoodyBlack.com. It has everything on it. Or all the social media platforms, I'm at I Am Moody Black. So I keep it real simple. Y'all can find me anywhere at I Am Moody Black. I have a book out called The Other Side of Tomorrow. It's available on Amazon and Kindle, or you can hit me up directly. I can get you a signed copy with a personalized message, and I can ship it to you. So that is going on. I have a one-man stage play called The Other Side of Tomorrow. And you can bring it to the city near you, inbox me, DM me, or you can just hit my website and leave me a message. I'll make sure I get that to you. And I have music on all the platforms, all the streaming platforms. Bandcamp, which is my favorite, called it actually pays artists. And moodyblack.bandcamp.com. Or you can go to Spotify, Apple, type of all the streaming platforms and type in Moody Black and get this goodness. You know what I'm saying? Get this goodness, y'all. Music with substance and it's jamming.
Beautiful. And I just want to give a big shout out to Ian and Listening to Smile Records that are putting on this podcast. So shout out to them. And dude, thanks for coming on the podcast again, brother. I appreciate it.
And thanks for having me, man. Keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate you, bro.
Thank you. And take care, everyone. I love you. Bye.